What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here at Midnight Double Feature. Whether you're watching this on TikTok or YouTube, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Don't love being on camera. I'm still getting used to it, so bear with me. So, as you've seen by the title, I'm going to be ranking the Harry Potter franchise. Why? I have no idea. I've just done a random rewatch. I'm a big fan of this franchise. I think like it really. I think like a lot of people my age, it kind of goes back to sort of like my childhood. I was a big fan of the books as they were coming out. I think when I started getting interested in them was so Goblet of Fire had just come out, and I remember sort of like being in like a Target and I saw like in like a bargain bin the cover for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or for you Americans, the Sorcerer's Stone, and I was like, Mom, I really want to get this. This looks awesome. And man, like history was made. I love those books a lot. They taught me a lot about values, and like it is what it is with J.K. Rowling now being a controversial figure, and I really hate that she's become that. And you can decide to side with her politics, and you cannot. I personally do not, but I think the values that are taught in the Harry Potter books are quite valuable, and they kind of made me who I am today. And I kind of like owe a lot to those books because they kind of like kickstarted my literary journey. So big fan of those books. So yeah, Philosopher's Stone, and then obviously I made my way down the line, Chambers of Secrets and Prison of Azkaban, and I remember being there at the midnight launch of like Order of the Phoenix and Half Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows, and credit to my parents for allowing that to happen. And I remember reading, picking up Order of the Phoenix and reading it in the food court. Like I just have these like very sort of like vivid memories. So yeah, this franchise means quite a bit to me, and obviously as the movies were coming out, like I was a big fan of the franchise as well. The first Harry Potter film is my first memory of going to the movies with my parents, so probably my first memory of going to the movies at all. And I remember we got this sort of like glow in the dark sort of lightning bolt that probably came with an overpriced combo. And yeah, man, like it was a fantastic first film. Um, I just thought that that first one was great. So, look, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ranking the franchise in my opinion. I know that there's varying opinions on the franchise out there. This is quite obviously going to be my own sort of take on it. Here we go, baby. So, I guess I'll start from number eight, considering that there are eight movies. Um, I'm going to. I don't know if this is controversial or not. I really hope it's not. I mean, for a lot of people, the bottom two are going to be the earliest ones, and that's the case with me as well. I'm going to put number eight, Chamber of Secrets. I think the Chamber of Secrets is fantastic. But by the way, all of these movies are great. Like I don't like hate any of these movies at all. I just think there's a kind of like a pretty definitive sort of like ranking. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. But I think number eight is it's an awkward one because like the kids are just kind of like they're not kids anymore. They've kind of grown into these sort of like young adolescents, and um, hearing Harry's voice for the first time, I definitely remember being a kid in the cinema and being like, "Whoa, Harry sounds like that now." Um, it's still a fantastic movie with great set pieces, and I think the story is great. We obviously get our first Horcrux as well, in Tom Riddle's diary, and I think the basilisk fight is quite stunning at the end as well. I love the rogue bludger. And obviously the addition of Gilderoy Lockhart, aka Kenneth Branagh, pretty fantastic. But like there are a couple things that really sort of bring it down for me. I'm not a fan of the Mandrake scene. That just gets so annoying. And I think the scene with like, man, the effects are a little bit dated, and that is what it is. It's just whatever. But like when they're flying in the Ford Anglia, and the trains behind them, it's just a bit goofy. This I was not also a big fan of this book. I think I think it's fine. I think it's a fine film. Like it is what it is. So number seven, right, sort of like I'm gonna say down there with it, but it's still great. Is Philosopher's Stone or the whatever the fuck you call it, Sorcerer's Stone in America. Um, I still think this is great. I still think this is fantastic. It's a great sort of like introduction. Also directed by Christopher Columbus, who went on to do the second one as well. And I will talk about like the change in directors over these sort of like these rankings because I think that's really important. But yeah, like I think the Chamber of Secrets does a fantastic. Sorry, Philosopher's Stone does a fantastic job of introducing the characters, the world, how we're going to navigate our way through this, the ins and outs of Voldemort and his relationship with Harry, the introduction of Hagrid, Dumbledore, Ron, and Hermione. I think this movie does a lot of heavy lifting, and I think it should get a lot of credit for that, which is why I kind of put it above Chamber of Secrets. Um, it is sort of like very sort of like low stakes. I love that the kids just automatically hate Snape because he wears black and is mean to them, which carries on through the franchise. It's just so like biased. And Quirrell is just a white guy with a turban that has a face on his head, on the back of his head. So that is something. And love wins the day, I guess. But is what it is. It's a kids movie, man. You got to take it as it comes. But yeah, like it hasn't aged amazingly. The Quidditch scene is still great. Yeah, this is like, and like I said, you got to give this movie a lot of credit because they did the casting before this movie, obviously. So, it, like if it wasn't for this movie, we wouldn't have Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. We wouldn't have Emma Watson or Rupert Grint or the amazing Alan Rickman as Snape. So like it does a lot of heavy lifting, and I give it a lot of credit for that. So number six, I'm going to put. Let me just check my list here. I'm going to put Half Blood Prince, and um, probably controversial. This was not my favorite book. I think it's just because um, see, but I love the flashbacks now. Like when I was a kid, I wasn't a big fan of like, oh, this is the flashback one. This is the one with, it gives you a lot of like sort of like context about Tom Riddle and who he is and how he kind of came to become the way he is, and um, it introduces you to the concept of the Horcruxes. And I think this is the second one directed by David Yates, and by this time we're kind of like really we've established the visual language of the Harry Potter franchise after sort of Prisoner of Azkaban. But this is dark, but it's also very light. We want to focus on this budding sort of like teenageisms of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. You've obviously got the the love potion, which is borderline sexual assault, but is what it is. Um, I love the Felix Felicis. Yeah, I think this one's a little awkward as well. It feels a little like, because I know that they've added sort of like action sequences to really spruce the movie up because quite frankly, the book doesn't have them. So obviously, the opening scene with the bridge is added for the movie. The sequence where the burrow gets destroyed is added for the movie. One of my gripes with this, and I was telling this to my partner, was they don't do a lot with Fenrir Greyback, who is supposed to be a werewolf. I just thought like I don't know, that's just one of those little book things, and one of just those nerdy things, but. Um, I don't know. I thought that this movie's a little uneven, and while I love the flashbacks now because I kind of like the context that they give to Tom Riddle to kind of make him more sinister as a child, and he was kind of like always this way. I do think it is a little uneven. Taking out the Battle of Hogwarts at the end as well, which was in the books because they wanted to sort of like save the budget for Deathly Hallows so they can have a bigger sort of battle sequence. Like it just kind of like sticks in my craw a little bit. And then like it kind of just ends up being a bit like Snape. at the end sort of goes up to Harry and he's like, "I'm the Half Blood Prince," and it's like, okay, so what? You taught Harry a spell that hurt, Draco, and you're a half blood. You're not a full blood, like whatever, pure blood. Okay, great, no worries. I know we're peeling back the layers of Snape, but I don't know. It just feels a little sort of like low stakes. But um, the ending with Dumbledore, man, man, is the score in this movie in the scene where they obviously raise their wands. It's quite beautiful. I think the whole sort of astronomy tower sequence is played incredibly well. Tom Felton does a great job because he just looks like he plays Draco in such a way that's so damaged and someone who's it feels like is really forced to do this, as he says. And Dumbledore knows what's coming, obviously. And I think Alan Rickman, in these last sort of three movies, he's not so much in the sort of Deathly Hallows Part 1, but in this one, when he's kind of like tasked with killing Dumbledore, you can definitely see the strain on his face. And if you know the ending of the series after the fact, it's so much more tragic. Um, so yeah, I think this one's quite uneven. Is what I'm gonna say. So okay, let's get to number five. um, this is one that I kind of wrestled with putting this at number five because I don't love it, but I can't deny its sort of like story structure or storytelling. Is Goblet of Fire is my number five. So Goblet of Fire is a really well structured story, man. Like, I mean, obviously you've got the Triwizard Tournament with, the first task, second task, third task, and obviously this whole sort of like Harry and Ron sort of like falling out sort of thing. But I think the twist is incredible. If you don't know it's coming, it's just like, oh wow. I do think they tip their hand a little bit with Barty Crouch and sort of like they do hit it a little bit hard, so you might be able to sort of like guess. But I think, man, when we're in Moody's sort of like office or Moody's office at the end, and you don't know what's coming, it's kind of like, whoa, okay. So Moody's been pushing Harry to get here this entire time just so he can aid in the revival of Voldemort because they need his blood, etc., etc. So I just think like it's a pretty wild twist, and it works so well. I also think the three tasks. Sorry, I'm just laughing because the three tasks are just I have so much. They're so funny because like I mean no, like what the crowd's just sitting there during the first task when Harry flies off into the castle and with a dragon, and no one can see what's going on with like the second task. I mean, are their TVs up, so you can see what's going on? Probably not, and no one can see what the hell's going on in the maze. Dumbledore's just straight up like, yeah, if you're in danger, shoot up red sparks. So is like the crowd just like waiting for like red sparks? Anyway, so that's just like my own little, gripes. And then like when we're kind of like at the end, um, when Dumbledore's addressing sort of like addressing them before they go into the maze, the crowd is like it looks like 50 people. It's not the whole school, so it let alone three schools. So I don't know. I don't know, but whatever. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think the sorry, I'm just thought I got a message. I think the first task is pretty incredibly well done. It feels like. I also feel like, hold on, sorry. Let me little bit of, like two gripes, but they're kind of like molded into one. Did they try and like save the budget with this movie because they don't show the Quidditch World Cup, which is what the fuck. I remember when like goddamn Cornelius Fudge does the whole thing, and then like the you follow the thing out and it transition over to them like in the tent like celebrating. I was like, what is going on? But I get it because you can't show a whole like what's the point? Um, but just give us a little bit of Quidditch. I love Quidditch. Um, and then like are they also saving budget with like Harry sort of like pacing around in his tent, waiting for the other champions to finish their dragon task? Like I just thought that was a little whatever. The second task is I don't even consider it super dangerous. I'm just like, oh, okay, great. You saved your friends and you got attacked by some little water things. And see, this is again, this is going to be constant. I'm going to have a lot of sort of like gripes with the movies. It's going to sound like I'm complaining that aren't in the book. So, in the maze in the book, there's so much more dangerous shit in the maze. And I just thought, like they kind of really scaled that down for the movie, and I was, I don't know. It's just again, it's just one of those things, man. Like you just gotta let go. But that's number five, Goblet of Fire. I think we're kind of like really. So this one's directed by Mike Newell, and this is the one that I don't really think has much of an identity. I don't think Mike Newell has sort of like a visual style that the other guys do, the other directors. Um, Obviously, Christopher Columbus with the first two, Chamber of Secrets and Philosopher's Stone, has this sort of like Home Alone esque feel, right? Obviously, because he directed that. Um, you know, and I think David Yates, as I'll talk about, kind of like has this sort of like also journeyman sort of like style, but I don't think Mike Newell really kind of brings his sort of voice to this movie, which is another sort of like gripe that I have, but it still stays in like dead center in the middle of the pack, pretty much. Number five. Number four, Order of the Phoenix. So Order of the Phoenix is actually my favorite book. I know that's going to be treasonous. A lot of people love Prisoner of Azkaban, but number five is my favorite, man. I love Order of the Phoenix, not just because it's the longest, which is like how it's also the shortest Harry Potter movie. I don't understand, but whatever. I just like the concept of the Ministry of Magic interfering with Hogwarts. I love the idea of Umbridge just kind of coming in here, being this administrator, um, and sort of like being this, I guess, sort of like totalitarian dictator. I dig that, and like sort of like the Dumbledore's army of it all, like Harry having to step up. I think this movie's pretty great. It's tough because this is the first one that's directed by David Yates, and he is sort of like figuring out the visual language of it. And there's a couple things that obviously are inconsistent with the previous movies. So, like the Dementors don't look the way they do in Prison of Azkaban, and there's like little sort of like niggles like that, and it's just like, oh man, you kind of like want a bit more consistency between the franchise, but different directors, different strokes. So I completely get it. I think I really like that we're really hinting at Harry being a Horcrux in this movie. Obviously, with the occlumency lessons that Snape's giving Harry, and sort of like Harry being unable to sleep, Dumbledore not looking at Harry directly, and kind of like Harry being like left in the dark. I dig this a lot. Obviously we get the big serious Black Death, which is heartbreaking. I really wish Gary Oldman had more time to cook in this franchise because he's so good. He's Gary Oldman. I think Imelda Staunton as Umbridge is pretty good. But I remember the books like describing her as sort of like toad-like, and I was like, "There's not really anything toad-like about Imelda Staunton." I don't like Grob. I just think he looks horrible. He doesn't call Hermione Hermy, and I thought that was cute in the books. Um, but yeah, I think this movie has a oh, man. The showdown between Voldemort and Dumbledore is badass. Holy, so good, so good. Yeah, enjoyed this one a lot. Order of the Phoenix. Okay, so we're gonna get to the top three, and obviously I haven't mentioned any of the Deathly Hallows, so you can guess. You can probably guess what's two out of the three. The This was tough for me. I know a lot of people don't like Deathly Hallows Part One, but I'm putting it at number three. I think a lot of people have gripes with it is because it is a Part One and because it doesn't have a resolution to a story or anything like that. And it feels like a part one. It's very glacial in terms of its pacing. It's very slow. It's very moody. But I think this is a straight up banger. And the reason for that is because I like that we're not in the school. I like that we have one movie where we're not in the school, and I know obviously we have like scenes that are like kind of like set at the school, like sort of like the Death Eaters sort of taking over, kind of like running the school. By the way, who keeps sending them to school? I don't understand. Um, but yeah, like I like that we're kind of on the run. We're looking for these Horcruxes. I like that we have. Man, there's this awesome scene in a cafe where the three are just sort of like chatting, and then these two Death Eaters walk in, and the scene that follows of this like sort of like mini action scene feels so gritty and raw. And by this time, David Yates has really sort of figured out his visual style, so it's all dark and like it feels very legit. It doesn't feel like we're in Philosopher's Stone world anymore. Like these kids have definitely grown up. I like the. It's a bit derivative of Lord of the Rings. With them wearing the sort of like the necklace or the pendant. Can't remember what they call it, but I like that Ron sort of like becomes jealous of Harry and Hermione's relationship. I really like the dance scene. I just think it's really adorable. Yeah, I think the kids really kind of came into their own in this one, and uh, I love the snatches at the end, and like this whole sort of like they crank up the shutter speed, which is why when they're running through the forest, it looks that way, and I think that's totally new for Harry Potter. I was just like, damn, like that looks incredible. Um, and once we get to the Malfoy Manor, it's pretty. It gets pretty dark, man. Like Bellatrix is like carving mudblood into Hermione's arm, and like Emma Watson's scream, like that Ron hears from the basement, is quite distressing. And then we get Dobby, man. Like Dobby's death is legit because the build up to it, the slow motion knife throw from Bellatrix and Bellatrix's face as she throws the knife. It's like I kind of wonder if she's just like, "Holy shit! I hope I don't hit Harry, so I don't get destroyed by Voldemort." Um, yeah, I think it's a pretty legit one. Big fan of this one. So yeah. And then that just leaves two more to go. And I guess the big question is, which one's my favorite? Am I a Deathly Hallows Part Two guy, or am I a Prisoner of Azkaban guy? And man, I'm gonna talk about my number one first, and it's Prisoner of Azkaban. Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite Harry Potter movie, and I think it is for a lot of people, man. Like I think Alfonso Cuarón kind of coming in to direct this movie was a masterstroke. I think whoever made that decision, whether it be David Heyman or someone at Warner Brothers, was just like, let's get a Oscar winner. I don't think he'd won an Oscar at this point, but like, let's get a independent sort of like filmmaker to kind of get in here and put his mark on this franchise, and that's exactly what he did. This is such a pivotal movie to this franchise because you have this visual shift, right? So you shift from the Chamber of Secrets, which is a little brighter. It is still quite dark, but it's a little brighter. And then you go straight to dark tones and grey, and everything's dead and dying inside in Prisoner of Azkaban. And you get that incredible moment on the bridge where the train stops and the Dementors come in, and the first time you see the Dementor, like with his cloak that's just ripped, and the hand comes around. It's it's fantastic, man. Like this movie has so much personality, I think, and not to mention the story is fantastic as well, which obviously is credit to J.K. Rowling. Sirius Black being the like a friend of James Potter, James and Lily Potter is a fantastic twist. Peter Pettigrew, aka Scabbers, not being Scabbers, is fantastic. I think this movie's solid all the way around, man. Like it's pretty flawless, actually. I've got no gripes with this movie whatsoever. John Williams scored this movie, by the way, and you don't have to. You don't have to have me to tell you how amazing John Williams is. I mean, the guy's scored Superman, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, whatever. But the score in this is fantastic. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is this track called Buckbeak's Flight, which is obviously when we got Harry over the lake, sort of like putting his arms out, and you got those violins, and it's amazing. Um, And the other one that really comes to mind is the Quidditch moment when the Dementors sort of like interfere with Harry and he sort of like falls off his broom. Yeah, fantastic movie, man, all the way around. We also get introduced to Lupin as well, who was fantastic in this movie. The Boggart scene, they make it so fun and so enjoyable. Sorry, I just fucking burped. Um, Lucky you're not smelling that because that is pungent. And then yeah, my number two is Deathly Hallows Part Two. Why did I not put this first? I don't know. I think this is still a fantastic ending to this franchise. I think I have to dock it points for the 19 years later sequence. I didn't like that in the book. I don't like it in the movie. I think the makeup is not great. But I mean, like it's a huge battle in the castle, and I mean, isn't that what we always wanted to see? Like, I mean, isn't this the way it ended up? It had to end. Harry realizing that he's a Horcrux and going to the Forbidden Forest to kill himself is quite fantastic. I think the actual battle sequences are fantastic as well. Everyone in this movie is great. Neville gets his sort of like hero moment, which is great. Ron and Hermione finally break their sexual tension and hook up in the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, and like I mean, obviously, the standout sequence in this movie is Snape's revelation, and the revelation that not only is so yeah, that's my Harry Potter franchise ranking. And if you want to check out some more videos, please stay subscribed to the channel. Give us a follow, give us a like. Thank you. So please check out the podcast because we do a lot of work on the podcast. Colin and I, and yeah, thank you so much, guys. See you on the next one.